Welcome back, my fellow aggressive learner. In this session, we're going to talk about the unit CSS units called EM, and we're also going to talk about what REMs. All right, so let's get started. Now, in CSS unit value, there is what we call EM. Now, the EM is also a relative value, and it depends on its parent. While also the default browser value is usually 16, all right, except you change that from your browser. Now I'm going to show you. All right, good. Now the one EM is 16 is exactly the size of your browser value, except you want to define in your code that you want to have a specific parent value, which we're going to try. Now 1 EM is the base value, which is your parent value, in this case the browser, times 1 will be 16. So if you want to have 2 EM will be 2 times 16, which will give you 32, and so on and so forth. If the default browser size is 10, it is going to be 2 times 10, which is what? Which is 20. And the same way, if it is 100, it is going to be what? 100 pixel. So whatever your base value is, multiplied by the number of EM, will give you the correct pixel value of what you represent. Most importantly, all I want you to understand here is that the EM will always depend on what? On the browser value or on the parent value, in case you define one. So let's go ahead and text run this. Let's create a small style called H1, and in that H1, I'm going to say relative value. All right, that depends on browser style, which is 16 pixel. All right, currently. Then sorry, I'm not just going to copy and paste. Absolute value or exact value. All right, let me use the word exact value. Does not depend on any parents. Is that clear? Good. Now let's give these two guys a class. Class rel value, rel val. I'm gonna call class abs val. I think I'm okay with this. So let me go ahead and give this value relative value. Remember, the browser default font style is what? Is 16. All right, so let me go ahead and do this. Dot class rel value. So what would it be? Let's give a font size of what? Of 2 EM. What exactly is it going to be? What exactly is it going to be? Let's give it 4 EM. 4 EM. 4 EM, right? So I think this is it, right? 4 EM. So 4 EM means 4 times the original default browser value, which will give you 64 pixel. So if I want this to be the same size of this for absolute value, what would it be? It is going to be just in pixel. That means I'm going to do pixel. Remember, pixel is absolute value, ABS val, right? So what is it going to be? It is going to be what? 64 pixel. Watch it. Sorry, excuse me. 64 pixel. Now you can see they are both the same size. They are both the same size. They are both the same size. Now let me show you a little bit. Go to your settings. Go to go to your settings, and then click on your settings, and then I think you should where is that stuff? Go to system settings. I can't remember. Yeah, go to appearance. Yes, appearance. So now under appearance, you can see font size. You see the recommended. This recommended is by default 16. Let's assume I choose a smaller version. Smaller, very small. Watch out what your CSS looks like. So now the smaller version, I don't know what it is, but we can check. If we want to know the exact size, we can do inspect. So increase this, and then we do what? We do this, do this. We can find out how many pixels this is. Okay, let me assume we can't do this for now, so let's continue what we're doing. All right, so but most importantly, what I want you to do is I want you to understand that we just changed the font size of our own browser. My browser just changed it, and then of course it quickly affected this. That means whatever this value is, whatever the browser value is, this EM multiplied it by 4, and definitely is a very small one. Now let's consider changing this to a bigger one and see. Very large, very large. Check it out. You can see. So it is taken, but the absolute value, nothing is happening to it. It is the way it is. It has no relationship with the browser value. It is not inheriting anything. It is exactly absolute as it was defined. All right. So let's go back to our recommended and remain where we are. So you can see that the default browser font size is 16, and the absolute is also taking that size. So since it is 16, EM is what? 4 times 16. 4 times 16 will give you 64. So the font size is also 16. So this is a proof. At least you now understand how EM works, and for now, that is it. The next thing I want to show you is what is RM. I want you to understand RM. Right? RM. RM is REM. RM is, it depends on what? On the root. On the root file, right? Not just the browser. All right, it depends on the roots. So how do we do REM? All right, good. Now, okay, so I think we should quickly demonstrate what REM would mean. Right now, remember, for EM, let me show you something. Let me show you something briefly. Let's assume that I have this thing inside a div. Let's assume that I have this thing inside a div, and I also have this one inside a div. I also have this one inside a div. All right. We're not talking about array. Let's look at what happens to it under EM. Now look at this. Let me quickly do div, element div, and then I'm going to do font size. I want it to be 10 pixels. Watch what happened. My original, are you seeing this guy? This relative value, that is for EM, inherited this div. It is no longer inheriting the browser style. It is now inheriting the div style, which is the immediate parent, because the div is the immediate parent, all right, of this H1. So of this real var, all right. So it is now inheriting what? The immediate font size of what? Of the parents. That is what is happening here. Now, but for REM, all right, it is not the same. REM depends on the root. So let's quickly see what happened. If this was to be what? For REM, watch it. It will go, and this will go and inherit the browser, which is the default size is 16. But this one, it will not inherit this one. You know, if it inherits this one, it's going to be 40 pixels. But watch it, it's going to be bigger than that. It's taking the exact shape of this guy. Are you seeing it? Meaning that it's actually inherited from the browser. It did not inherit from the immediate parent. So, which means that REM we always inherit from what? From the root. It depends on the root and not any parent. That is the basic difference from what? Between REM and what? And EM. EM we can inherit from the immediate parent, but the REM will always inherit from what? From the default, from the root, which is what? Either HTML. Your root can be HTML. Let's say you defined this, you defined HTML, and then you now define body, and then you now say this. You can say, I want my font size, my font size not to be 16. I want it to be what? To be 20 by default. 20 pixel by default. What it means that you are automatically overriding the original. Let me make it 32 pixels so that we'll be able to pick something out of what we're doing. So I'm going to make it 32. So you can see now. You can see. So in this case, REM inherited from, we have automatically defined our own root, what our root should look like. All right, we have defined it. So REM is inheriting from our root. But go back to EM and see what happens. You will see that EM is not inheriting from our root folder. It's not inheriting from our root definition. So in case where you don't define this, the REM will look for your browser default style and make use of it. So hopefully you are able to understand the difference between EM and REM. We are going to be making use of them as we continue in this course. Very important. The REM would depend, is a relative value that depends on, when you say relative value, it means it depends on something. It depends on what you are working on. It depends on what, in this case, it depends on what? On the root. And the root could be what? The HTML root, the body root, or the universal selector. All right. So anything that is not the root, the REM will not inherit from it. But EM can inherit from anywhere. EM can inherit from immediate root. As long as there's no immediate parent defined, EM will inherit from what? From the root file. And hopefully that is clear and you got the gist. I will see you in the next section.